Hello, hello, and listen, welcome to the Career Hive, episode 13. And I have someone who I'd like to call a friend, as well as an inspiration in James Gayle, right? The CEO, founder of Shogun Social. So hopefully, welcome on board today, James, and looking forward to going through your fantastic career journey and your amazing organization as well.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you. As Kufa said, I am the CEO and founder of Shogun Social. We help businesses post like creators in its simplest sense. So it's a very interesting concept that most businesses focus on, really doubling down on their large marketing campaigns, TV, billboard, all that kind of stuff. Whereas it's my belief that real brand advocacy and a good relationship with an audience is built on social media, and it's built on the everyday things you put out to provide value, inspiration, education to people. That actually matters. So we help dive into large organizations, small organizations, wherever it may be, and we help them overcome that daily grind, post with a strategy, post with an ideal, and help kind of emphasize their own brand voice and maximize their free channels, because that's the most important thing. So that's what I do now, but there was a big old lead up to that in terms of marketing career that that we're going to jump into today to actually get to that point where we could do stuff like that. So that's what I do now, but I'm sure we'll get into our journey in a nutshell in a second.
Yeah, love that, and I think, it's one of those things that when I look at the influence of social media across the board, right? I was laughing, I was taking an Instagram live with my son away on holiday, and how much he spends, everything he does, he's got his TikTok lives going, he's got Instagram lives going, etc. So yeah, I'll be fascinated to find out a little bit more about your story and absolutely sharing, what is it that got you into this journey. So kind of listen, just talk me through it, right? Talk me through, James entering secondary school, I guess, or life story. Let's just kind of talk through that journey, right? Let's get to know James and his journey in more detail.
Oh, so we're going back to when I was a wee lad. All right,
wee lad, I love that.
I like that. So yeah. Basically, I lived and worked in Southampton my whole life. I do need to get out more. I'm a Southampton boy, I must admit. And my school was, for lack of a better term, a bit rough. It was an all-boys school that mixed with a mixed school, and they had a rivalry beforehand in the city anyway, and when they came together, it all clashed. So I've got a post about it on my LinkedIn you might want to check out. My school year when I started in year 7 had full-blown riots. So I'm talking chairs through windows, like kids were riding mopeds through halls. It was a wild time to go to school, right? It was full blown something out of a movie. So school
sounds like a Netflix
school never quite recovered from that. It never did quite recover. So in that sense, it was almost like I had to find my own way even in school. So I think that kind of helped in the kind of solo entrepreneur mindset and just kind of learning and going throughout things. And I was never exactly akin to being academic either. It's every entrepreneur says this, but bit dyslexic, bit ADHD, can't concentrate, didn't want to be there, didn't want to focus on whatever they were teaching me. I had other things I wanted to focus on, but I did knuckle down just enough to get my basic GCSEs, made sure I had, anyway, I think most of it was C's across the board, classically average, and then, I had a few B's in there maybe, and then a couple of D's and stuff we don't talk about. So, in that sense, I had to get over that initial proper hurdle, because there are many doors that aren't open to you if you don't get GCSEs or if you don't get equivalents, and it's not talked about enough. I mean, even in school, I think a lot of kids will be like, time to drop out, I've got this, I'm going to start selling this and that, and I'm like, that's great, but please just get those essentials, because those are like the baseline, right? But then going to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, just like, who the hell knows what they want to do for a career after school. So I decided to go to Southampton City College and do TV and film, because I thought that would just be generally interesting, run around the camera. I was always a bit of a tech head anyway, so I thought that was a natural progression. Did 2 years of that, and then I was about to graduate and realise, I'm not sure I particularly want to be behind a camera, because at the time, I think, back in the day, I wanted to be a marine biologist. But then I realised you needed amazing grades to be a marine biologist, and I was like, you know what, I'll be a cameraman and film them from the boat. There you go, still get the C sharp. Okay. So I tried to skip the line there. So, but go through college, did TV and film, but then at the end of it, I was like, I don't know if I kind of want to be behind and just be a camera operator. So I took a year and just did random things at A level. So I did a BTEC doing TV and film, and then I went and did an A level at another college, and it was stuff that was completely out of the realm. So it was law, classical civilization, sociology and psychology. Just went from complete non-academics to complete academics, right? And part of it was to try and test myself. The other part was just to see what's what and who's who, but mostly because I wanted to play basketball there and they had a good team. So it was like balancing all that. I kind of got to live my kind of classic American high school life. But that was really interesting. But the psychology element actually peppered in a really interesting factor for me. And throughout the time, obviously, through education, I've always been like in a sales job. So I worked at Foot Locker for a long time, Virgin Media, Samsung. I've always had sales type roles. So I knew I was good at selling. I had the gift of the gab, had to develop it because no one wants to buy insults at Foot Locker, but somehow I pulled it off. And I thought, why not mix my love of media with my love of sales? When it came to the uni choice, I went to advertising. So I did advertising at Sony University. And from there, just kind of expanded. And it was an interesting experience going to Solent because it was taught to you as a classic agency structure would be for an advertising agency. In 2022, advertising agencies are few and far between. They're rather large organisations that have been around for a long time, but the entire course was taught from that perspective. So when we got out into the real world, for a few it was quite a culture shock because we weren't prepared for what was a modern society of mixed marketing agencies that had a lot of different specifications in it. So I'm very lucky I went out of my way to do work experience in second year and in third to actually get myself exposure to the real world and start giving myself marketing qualifications alongside it. We can dive into the kind of those specific ones later. But yeah, it was all about kind of bootstrapping my way through every level of education and then finally getting into the world of work. So that was at least my educational journey, and it's all just based on guesses. I think a lot of students are way too hard on themselves in regards to how they pick certain decisions. Sometimes they're forced down a certain route by parents or influences in family, whereas sometimes you just got to give the best guess of what you think you might enjoy. And a lot of people are paralysed by that choice. And every person I talk to, I'm like, you're not going to know if you like something until you just give it a go. So just keep testing things. Life's for tasting. So just keep going on like that. But that was my educational journey. Yeah.
Oh, good, fascinating. And what I love about your journey, I'm a fellow dyslexic as well, and having gone to school, even though I was born in the UK, I went to school in Zimbabwe, and you can imagine in African society that doesn't exist, right? So dyslexia, ADHD, just doesn't exist. You're just simply naughty and lazy because all my reports would say Kufa can do better. Kufa has the ability. So I'm sure you have the same reports, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Whereby the kind of everyone I know who kind of has, especially if you're not. If you're not on the extreme side of the spectrum, if you're in that, as I call it, where we are probably in that kind of grey area, where it comes across because we're quite good at hiding it and working our way around it. But hey, your school sounded exciting as well, right? I think when you look back and now it's probably fun, but when you're in year 7, 11, 12, that's not that's not the place you want to be. So it's good. And what I like as well is, you kind of made a really good point, and that's the conversation that we're trying to have here at Future Match when we talk to organizations and we're working with them to basically look at how they bring that early careers talent on board, is to sort of say, look, there's a big differentiation between what is being taught in school, in college, and in university about the potential sector to where the reality is in regards to when you actually get out to industry. And sometimes, the speed of change that's happening in industry isn't necessarily being met by schools, etc., which is why I believe that if, the earlier we can get organizations involved in how at least that career piece is kind of delegated, and for organizations to have that kind of flexibility, so support work experience, so you get to know what it really means when you're in that space, is absolutely critical, because the difference is there. The amount of conversations we have with pitching, and clients are going, oh yeah, but this generation don't really understand what it means to work in our industry, and you're thinking, well, that's not their problem in a way. It's because of how it's been kind of sold to them and how they're being taught about the industry. Actually, it's your role as a business, as part of driving your employer brand, that you go out and talk about your industry. So, really good to kind of, I love that, like, that kind of amazing link there. So there's James, and also I liked how you kind of went into this role and thought, well, I want to do this, but actually, you know what? It's not my kind of thing. I want to try. I'll be the person in the back of the camera. That's not what I want to do. Again, it's something that we promote when we're talking to early career talent. That look, you know what? It's not necessarily about the destination. It's about the first step that you take, and then allowing yourself to have that flexibility, the ability to look and skip and jump and see how it kind of goes in there. So that's great. So if you could look back now, when you think about your education journey to where you are right now and kind of graduating, and before we talk about the next exciting phase of your journey, what would you advice would you kind of give yourself or a young person in your situation? Of course, hopefully not in a school where there's mopeds being driven through the school hall, but probably looking at it now, GCSE results coming out in 3 weeks' time, A-level results coming out, and kind of thinking, oh, what do I do next and where do I go next?
It's such a tricky question to answer because obviously everyone has a different feeling towards, I remember being like nervous about my GCSEs because, and A levels as well. I mean, it was less bad for me because I did a BTEC first to almost give myself security because there was no exams involved because I knew exams were my weak spot. So when I did actually do A levels, it was fine. But I remember the initial anxiety before opening up my GCSE results, and there's a lot of mixed feelings. But one of them, I think you need to have is this confidence that no matter what happens when you open that envelope, you'll find a way. And developing that self-confidence is something that can be really difficult. And especially when you're younger, you can find strange ways to develop that self-confidence, and it will help even if you open up and it's all Fs. There needs to be that voice in the back of your mind that doesn't say you're doomed. It needs to say, all right, cool, that's not the path, let's figure out the next one. Or no worries, there's always next year. There's always another way around that. So that's one thing I'd say. But there used to be weird things I did when I was at that age to develop my confidence. And anyone that's a WWE fan will know the feeling of this, right? And this is such a weird, like, off-topic thing. But I used to, when I woke up for school every day or on the weekends or whatever, I'd come downstairs to a different WWE entrance theme every day.
Oh, wow, okay.
I did like a whole like boss dog thing on the way down. Yeah. And it's as stupid as it sounds, that really helped instill confidence in me. Yeah, more of a performative element, I think. Yeah. And because I did it daily as more of almost like a prank at first, and then it kept escalating. That kind of got me used to communicating in different ways and being more performative. So when it came to work where I had to pitch in something that, after about 1,000 WWE entrances, that's nothing. I can do this pitch easy. It sounds so unrelated and so stupid, but it is what helped build my confidence initially. Yeah. And so, find stuff to make you feel confident in ways that you wouldn't think, because there's always going to be another way. It doesn't matter what happens when you open those results. You're going to find a way around it, and that's kind of been my journey in a weird way. It's bootstrapping. We find a way. There's always a way, and especially in the entrepreneur route, which we'll talk about later, that is something you always have to tell yourself, is that don't worry, there's always another way. Right, tried this, didn't work, next one, on to it.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think it's always a key thing that I kind of love what you just said there. I'm a great believer that there's no magic one. There's no 3 exact ways of which you can build self-confidence or how you can deal with certain scenarios. It's all about how you look at it. And I love your kind of WWE example, because that is what works for you. I remember when I kind of opened my results, so something happened, and I call it, excuse my French, I call it, oh shit, right? Which is that kind of, you open them up and you go, oh shit. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do now, right? And then it's from that moment that I find myself kind of in that space which goes, right, what have I got to do next to kind of move on from what I've just opened up with, whether it's good or, and it doesn't matter, even if it's really good, I always go, oh shit. and from that moment, it's like, okay, what's the next kind of step forward? So yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And a lot of young people will be opening up those results, and it'll be like, oh, great, okay, what does that mean? What does it mean for me? And I think you also said, which is really, really important, and I'm trying to get this message across, is that you're absolutely right. Get your basics right. Get your maths and English. Get those grades there, because that does open up a door, especially when you're young. It kind of allows you to go into the next level in terms of if you want to do A levels, if you want to do an apprenticeship, you don't have to go back and do that. And the best place to do your English and maths is in school, right? The minute, I'm not saying come out with those 2 GCSEs, but those are critical. And then, then the other 3 to make it 5, absolutely important as well. But it's important to have that, because that opens up the door. And when I say to young people is, look, you've got a choice, right? Do I want to open the door with having to push it and really give it some, or do I want to just gently nudge the door open? I'd rather go the gently nudge the door open aspect, because whatever's behind that door, I'm going to have to work for anyway. So yeah, there you go. Thanks for that. Love that. So when was it that you decided that, actually, you know what, I'm good at sales? I love marketing. I kind of see there's a huge opportunity in the space to do something really different. And I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna slide down the banister this morning, and my WWE song is going to be "Let's Do It." Right? It's gonna be, this is the, I'm going for it now. Yeah, talk me through that moment.
It was an interesting one, that moment, because it's not one I can define. It happened over many moments, and I think even if you, because there's always a constant debate going, right, if university is worth it. And I think because the way our student loan system works is not the same as America. They're not going to come for every penny as soon as you leave, right? It's the best value loan you're ever going to get, and it's worth it. So people do tend to big that up a bit in their head. The debt's not that bad, trust me. But it gave me time to think. You never know what you actually want to do when you're out and about. You don't. You just have to test things and see how it works. And I see university as that 3 years worth of time to figure yourself out and figure different things out. People underestimate how valuable that time is. I feel if I'd entered the world of work straight out of college, it probably would have been a recipe for disaster, because I hadn't figured out my skill sets and really flushed them out. And university can help teach you that, regardless of whether you think the course was for you or was worth it. I mean, this is why plenty of people do stuff that's completely different to their degrees at the end of it. The narrative shouldn't be that degree is completely useless. That narrative should be, university was that time I needed to figure myself out and move on. Even though it's a bit expensive. There you go. But on the topic of how I thought about things, so I've always loved The Apprentice and Dragon's Den, right? Classic business shows. And I've always wanted to look. I've looked at them and go, especially because The Apprentice gets a bit sillier and sillier every year. I'm like, I could have done better than that. You look at it and go, and I thought that even back in the day. So to me, it was like, if they can do it, so can I. I've always had that mentality of, if another human being can do something, I should be able to do it. At least if it's business, if it's something physical, then it's out of the realms of comprehension for someone or whatever. Pick your battles. But for me, it was going, if they can do it, so can I. So how do I do it? And I think that was the first in the kind of entrepreneurial steps forward, but I knew I needed to get experience first. I needed to learn the ropes and things. So that's why work experience was important. So second year in university, first work experience, I applied for like a marketing job, which is actually the only job I've ever not got, which has always bugged me. It's the one black mark on my card. I've always smashed every interview because I feel like I've worked on communicating, which is probably more of an important skill than maths a lot of the time. So, controversial opinion there. So, in that sense, I started with two entrepreneurs. They ran a business called Virtual Umbrella, VR and AR marketing for brands and events, which was really, really cool. Even though I was just kind of setting up headsets and writing a blog here and there, seeing that and being exposed to that and seeing how different it was compared to my advertising teachings really opened a door for me. So I then started looking into, right, what are the extra qualifications I can get? I started looking into the realms of, right, marketing. We've got Google Digital Garage that can give you a full-blown little marketing qualification and a certificate at the end. You've got everything that HubSpot offers with social media marketing, content marketing, marketing in general. They give you certificates on the back end of it. LinkedIn Learning, which gives you certificates on the back end of it. And I started making it a habit of collecting these extra qualifications like gold stars, or trying to collect them like prizes. So when it came to my third year, or when it came to actually going out to get jobs, not only did I go out and get work experience, I got all the extra qualifications on the side, and they were completely for free. So that did really, really, really help. You have to think very forward thinking about this stuff. And then also when you get opportunities to link between brands and yourself while in university, you have to take full advantage of it. In my third year, I had a unit called agency simulation. We had to make up our own agency. We were given a brief by an existing agency that was partnered with the university, and the task was to pitch it to them and see how everything went. We went with an agency that was near us called 5x5. One of their clients was B&Q at the time, and there was always rumblings that sometimes the real life client does appear in these pitches that you do to try and look for university talent. rumor or not, I was like, right, if there's a solid chance that someone from B&Q and this agency are going to see me pitch, then this has to be the pitch of my lifetime. Yeah. So there's a group of 4 of us. We absolutely smashed it. We went to B&Q stores to do market research. We came up with a bunch of ideas, graphics, the whole nine, and came up with a brilliant presentation I rehearsed until I went blue in the face. And then when we went to this agency to pitch it, both the agency were there and B&Q was there. So we smashed this pitch out, really impressed them. And then when I went to a few weeks later, guess who hits me up on LinkedIn? B&Q. Yeah. Guess who emails me after that? The agency 5x5. Mm-hmm. So when I graduate, I have the choice between going agency route and client side. And I had 2 job offers at university, which is quite rare, but again, communication is the tool to overcome most things and just show how much you know, because it shows how much potential you could have outwardly. And communicating your ideas effectively are sometimes better than having good ideas, because you have to be able to sell them to other people. So that's actually how I ended up getting into industry. However, another story is they don't tell you the difference between agency side and client side. And I feel, for me, I chose wrong initially. And I went to work with B&Q, and it wasn't the best experience for me because it was a completely different experience. But giving yourself those options, doubling down when you get to meet industry, and giving yourself many extra qualifications on the back end whenever you can, because that boosts your CV massively. So instead of just coming out with the degree, you'll come out with experience, come out with extra qualifications and the degree, and a damn good pitch to boot. That's how you should think about it. You are building yourself as much as humanly possible. More effort, less nights out, I'm sure. But if you want to make it, you've got to do what others want to succeed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just interesting, so, obviously you had a decision to make, and you made the choice to go to B&Q. When you look back now on reflection, what was the driver for you to accept the B&Q role over the agency role?
It was purely selfish and ill-advised. B&Q had a fancier job title, and they offered me more money.
Yeah, okay,
that was it.
Yeah.
But what I didn't factor in was the difference in the everyday work. Agency side is doing a lot of the creative, the planning, the actual doing for a large client, whereas client side at that scale, when you're looking at businesses as big as B&Q, people don't realise that it's actually just about facilitating, signing off. You rarely get to be creative whatsoever. It's much more of a corporate role. And me and corporate went together the same way as me and school did. It was just not going with my lifestyle. So in that sense, I left that role 6 months after and went straight into agency life and never looked back.
Yeah, that's good. No, it's quite, as I said, it's as you know, my passion for this kind of side of what we do and why we do it Future Match is that, well, how great would it have been for you to have a really good understanding of what does B&Q mean from a corporate and from a career pathway, and what does agency mean for me, and whether that happened from a school or a uni, but just you got those kind of insights, and then you could have made, then your decision is better informed. So then, yeah, you learn from it. In 6 months, you managed to move back into agency, but imagine what you could have done if you didn't have to have kind of gone through that emotional turmoil for that 6 months, because it's not working out for you. It's not really exciting, and yeah, it's good money on paper, but you're waking up every morning and your WWE song is not the same high volume velocity, because you're kind of going to do something that you're not really looking forward to. So I was quite interested just to sort of see how that sort of changed. So you went into agency, you went into client side, realized, hey, look, it's agency for me. You then obviously had a chance to work on that. When did Shogun come into play then?
So Shogun actually came quite a few years after. So I was in marketing for 3 or 4 years before I started the business. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people try and start businesses at university. As soon as it's almost like the horses run out of the gate after that. I definitely wouldn't be able to run this business to any way of the same degree without the experience I gathered. There's certain things that working in a large corporate taught me, and working with agencies taught me. And I think because I've seen both sides of that coin, it allows me to deliver the best client experiences, understand how those clients work, sign off processes, and how long things can take, because when you've only been one side of the coin, you don't understand the other. So that is really interesting. But getting jobs in agency is also really tough. There's a general theme at the moment that in agency world and in marketing in general, that there's a talent shortage. I'm not of the belief that there's a talent shortage. I think there's just a miscommunication in how people are conveying their ideas and trying to get jobs. In marketing, it's such a different experience. So when you're looking at something in finance, perhaps, or anything else, we're looking at they're hiring on a large scale. They have computer systems that scan CVs for certain keywords. You have to keep it to a certain structure to make sure it works with those systems. Whereas it's completely opposite bonkers la la land in agencies, because agencies can be quite small, quite specific, and need basically people that are just out there to make things done, especially if you want to be a creative. You have to do things that others won't to get jobs. So I used to look at it from a lens called ABM marketing, so account-based marketing. What are my 10 to 15 ideal people I'd love to work for, and how do I create a custom campaign or a custom way to reach out to them to impress for each one? So that's what I did to get to my second and third agency. So I worked in about 3 or 4. So in that sense, I was like, right, let me write them down. Let me figure out a way I can reach out. LinkedIn, email, something physical. So I actually bought a bunch of 10 golden tickets or golden envelopes from Amazon. I put my CV and cover letter in there. A little sticker on the front says your golden ticket has arrived, and send it to each and every one of the people I wanted to work with. You have to get that creative in agencies. There's stories of people doing wild stuff to get working in agencies. So McCann Bristol, someone painted themselves in complete gold and dressed themselves up like a statue that's in Bristol and stood outside the agency because that's almost like a mascot for it, until someone came down and asked her to come in the office. Someone strapped their CV to a chicken and opened the doors to the agency and let it in. I don't think they got the job on that one, but it was definitely memorable. So you have to think very entrepreneurially about getting jobs in agencies, because it can be so tough and so competitive, and it shows how creative you are. In marketing, if you can't sell yourself, how are you supposed to sell anything for a client? And that's the way you need to think. So you need to come in and you are the best thing since sliced bread. You are going to bring value to this company in XYZ way, and even if you don't actually believe that in yourself, create this outwards persona that can. And this is why it comes back to the WWE thing. Yes, it's basically the largest theatre performance going. It's all fake, quote unquote, but it's the presentation of it all that really helps you win out. And I've had to do something creative to get into a lot of agencies until they start reaching out to you, or until your CV is strong enough in that sense to actually start getting people via normal roles where you can just connect and it goes away. So when you really want to work somewhere, there is definitely a way to do it. You just have to think, quote unquote, out of the box to do it.
Yeah. Cool. So how many, how big is your team right now? And how many of those have done some crazy, wacky stuff to get your attention?
Good question. So we are a team of 6 at the moment. And I'd say a couple of them have done some cool things. So one of them made a custom TikTok to become part of the team, introducing herself, who she was, what she did, and her experience, and basically summarising her CV in a custom video. And then there's other people that I just worked with in the past. Some people put together amazing presentations for second stage tasks. So my team has been, I've tried to headhunt a lot on my team, purely because I'm looking for specialists in each area of social media. So right now we're looking at recruiting a TikTok specialist to support me in TikTok strategy and actual implementation. We've got a specific guy for YouTube, Instagram, like Twitter. We have experts in-house for each one, and that's because of the way we're trying to put together our business. But if someone came to me and sent me a golden ticket, if someone came to me and, I won't say bring a chicken to the office, but, something crazy, so I can be like, wow, they really want to work here, because it shows you're really forward thinking, and it shows how creative you are, because now I know you can have ideas for that, like that, for our clients, and that's what I need. So what we don't realise about in marketing is most of the time agencies are paid for ideas. Like, we just hire people that are more creative than us, and it's such a bizarre thing to think about, that you get paid for having ideas, but we do. And clients really value those ideas, and that's what helps them get excited about their own brands again. So come at it from that lens, because that doesn't mean, it doesn't matter how much experience you have. Ideas do not need 10 years in the industry to make a big impact.
Yeah, that's true. So in just looking at, in terms of, obviously, you're recruiting, you talked a wide range around some of the things you did to get your attention of potential employers. You've had people do the same thing to kind of join your team. If you were to summarize it, what are the 3 things that a young person needs to have or needs to consider when looking at a career in marketing and agency specific?
I'd say it's a mixture of looking at So point number one is develop hard skills and soft skills. So this is where the marketing is a really broad range of stuff, and we're seeing the rise of either specialist agencies or specialists being hired within different companies. That's why mine is basically consistently put together with a team of specialists. So hard skills for that could be, for instance, knowing how to completely build a website from scratch, so WordPress, or you're brilliant on email marketing. That is your hard skill. Your soft skill needs to be like brilliant communication, teamwork, and being able to get feedback from that. So you can have it either as a list for yourself, or you can put it as a mini list on your CV. But let the employer know the exact specialisms you're coming in with, because they're always hiring to try and fill a gap. So you can always peer on, especially this is why LinkedIn's so helpful. Go on an agency you want to work with, see who they have in different departments of it, or a company you want to work with. If you see a lack of social media, if you see a lack of email, if you see a lack of website, whatever it is, design your CV to plug a gap if there is no existing job roles, and then go in saying, I've got the specialism, here I am, let me fix your problems. Or if it's for a specific job role, taper your hard and soft skills around that specific job role. Make sure you have the skill set to do it. So that's definitely point number one. I think point number two, people need to get as creative as humanly possible when it comes to marketing. A lot of the times it's just impressing people, and having great ideas for yourself, like we talked about before, will lead to great ideas for clients, and that's what we're always looking for as marketing and agency owners. And point number three would probably be communication skills. You have to be able to convey the amazing ideas you have. You have to be able to pitch well, because it will end up being part of your roles. I mean, normally you get to senior exec or manager role before you start pitching by yourself to clients. But if I can see someone has that potential before they've reached that level, I'm comfortable to let them do it, because I know if you can build a good relationship with your client and be able to actually do that, then I'm happy to put that trust in you. So showing that you can communicate and show that you can be confident in your words, because a lot of the times when you're doing account management, working with a client, they need to know that you know what you're doing. And sometimes that will come across in the inflections in your voice, your body language. So look up a bunch of body language stuff. Look up confidence. How do you paint a picture with your hands? Keep them going in that sense. That can really help your presentations. It can get slightly annoying, but it does actually help your skills. So keeping clients confident is the key. And if you can keep them confident, bring great ideas and a specialism to your team, you're an absolute weapon, and there's no such thing as a talent shortage. You just need to focus yourself in on those particular areas.
Yeah, I love that. So just kind of building on that now quickly, because I could talk to you for hours and days, right? So I love everything you say. So let's just talk about the landscape right now in terms of how you see it from an industry perspective, and what you see for the opportunities for the next kind of workforce that comes into play. As I said, there's a group getting results for A levels and GCSEs in 3 to 4 weeks time. There's obviously going to be uni groups and college groups, talent coming in onto the market space. How would you summarize the world of opportunities within your industry overall?
The marketing opportunities at the moment are really large. So more generally for brands, like the pandemic changed a lot for them, and content marketing and specific digital things are needed now more than ever, because the pandemic may be kind of quote unquote over. There's no lockdowns anymore. What there is the work from home culture stayed. The dedication to go outside and actually do something, it needs to be worth it now. Otherwise, there's no point. Like if it's like a meeting or a networking thing, could I do it over Zoom? Is it worth me getting off my arse in my comfy house, right? So, there's a big gap there in terms of companies that need to digitalize. A lot of companies are digital already. I think there's still a lot of companies that go around and say, we need to have digital. I mean, even the government now have a help to grow scheme for a lot of businesses. It's like, give yourself digital software. Like, yeah, we've all got digital software. I don't need a voucher for digital software. What I need is financial support for X, Y, and Z or whatever. But that's a different thing. So in the wider business landscape, we can see there's a massive need for SEO, content marketing, website building in a different way. Like ads management will always be needed. And alongside that general creativity, those are the skill gaps we need to fill. Whether it's working in employment, whether it's entrepreneurially, those are the things I'm seeing at the moment over here. The actual employability opportunities, I'm seeing a big rise in really successful digital apprenticeships through marketing. our current operations manager, Freddie, started in the digital apprenticeship and he's absolutely smashed it. And he's our operations manager much quicker than I think someone else would be, because it's actually hard to transition from creative role to operations. But it's because he's plugged himself into the organisation and rose rapidly. There's a lot more agencies hiring via different schemes for trainees that move on to apprenticeships later on if they see really nice potential from people. Whereas it used to be, I'm waiting for a CV with University of Bournemouth on it, Bath, Bristol, sometimes Southampton, Solent, because those are typically really creative universities. That is very much out the window now, at least from what I can see, and it's much more focused on, again, those balance of hard and soft skills and what they can see from your personal brand. So I say that's the other massive opportunity. It does not matter how young you are, how much you think you know, give value from your perspective. There's so much you can deliver, whether you've had 1 year in the industry or just done work experience for 2 weeks. There's a lot you can tell people about how valuable that work experience was. There's a lot you can tell about your experience as an 18-year-old person. There's plenty you can tell about being an apprentice. There's so much content to be given within it that if you start your personal brand now, it's very much like compound interest when you're talking about finances. The equity you're going to have on the other end after you've been posting 3 times a week for the next 3 years is astronomical compared to someone who just goes in, gets a job, and that's it.
Yeah.
So those are your massive opportunities: personal brand, digital apprenticeships, and plug in the gaps that companies have via either employment or being entrepreneurial.
Wow, I love everything you said, and it's a huge space and a huge opportunity for any young person who's looking to kind of get into that space. So thank you very much. So just to summarize, have your WWE theme song ready for yourself. Make sure that whatever happens, you are prepared to do whatever it takes to get in front of the organizations you want to be in. Map the kind of companies you want to be part of, and look, there's a great pipeline of opportunities for any young person interested in coming into play. And if you're a company, get out there, and really kind of engage as quickly as you can with that early careers talent to sell. What a wonderful space this is. Hey, listen, James, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking time out to kind of go through your exciting journey. And yeah, I was a big fan of WWE, but I think in my day it was WWF. We kind of started with Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker was coming into play. So hey, listen, that's a whole different conversation. So hey, thanks a lot, James, and speak to you soon, right?
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No problem.